At this time, I would ask everyone to rise if you could, and please remain standing. We're going to have our honor guard come in, and then as they come in, we're also going to have Lieutenant Kristen Roman sing the national anthem, so remain standing as that takes place as well. Thank you.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
All right, thank you very much. You can be seated. Thanks to Lieutenant Roman for her beautiful voice, and thanks to our honor guard for participating this evening. This is our annual Madison Police Department Awards ceremony. It gives us a chance once a year to really recognize the many great acts that everyday people do to help this community and to help this police department. This is also a night that gives us the opportunity to say thanks to individuals and organizations that partner with this police department to make Madison a better and a safer city. It is also the night where we take a moment to honor our civilian staff and to, of course, honor those who have taken the oath to protect and serve this great community in which we live. Before we begin the presentations, this makes things go more quickly, and I've learned over the years that a shorter ceremony is often a better ceremony. So as you follow along in the program, as you see your name is about to be called, and Captain Sue Williams, who will give you a wave over there, she's going to try to help you get up to the side of the stage here to my left, your right. And as your name is called, if you could please come up and join us on stage and hear the reading of your award, that would be great. And then once you're done receiving your award, you'll shake hands with our chiefs and with the mayor and exit out the front. So without further ado, I would like to call forth the Chief of Police of Madison, Noble Ray, for his thoughts on this evening.
Thanks, Joel. He's making us promise that we're going to keep this in 1 hour, so we're going to try and do that. But and we do that because we're fortunate enough to have young people that come out to the ceremony. We want to make sure that they are able to enjoy it, not have to stay and get restless and so on and so forth. But welcome to our annual ceremony. It's a time where we're really excited to sit in the room with community members, civilian staff, commission staff, and really recognize those things that have taken place in 2012. But before I do that, there are some people that I do want you to recognize. If Honorable Mayor Paul Soglin, if you could stand and be recognized. Alderperson Vida Shilov, could you stand and be recognized? Sorry about that. And Police and Fire Commissioner George Campershar, could you stand and be recognized, please? As many of you may realize, every year we hold our ceremony on Police Week. And Police Week, we always reflect on those who have paid the ultimate sacrifice and service to our country and have given their lives in the policing profession. In 2012, there were 47 officers that were killed in the line of duty. So in recognition of that, if you could all join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. Every year for Police Week, I always I reflect on, what is the mission of policing? And, if you ask someone what is the mission of policing, most citizens and even most people in law enforcement will say it is to protect and serve. Well, tonight, you will see that it is more than that. You will understand that the mission of policing is more than that. There are a number of things that are involved in the mission of policing. The mission of policing is to prevent and control conduct threatening to life and property, including serious crime. The mission of policing is to aid victims of criminal attack and protect individuals in danger of physical harm. The mission of policing is to protect constitutional guarantees such as the right of free speech and assembly. The mission of policing is to facilitate the movement of people and vehicles. Is to assist those who cannot care for themselves, including the intoxicated, the addicted, the mentally ill, the physically disabled, the elderly, and the young. The mission of policing is to resolve conflict between individuals, groups, or between citizens and their government. To identify problems that have the potential for being more serious for individuals, the police, or the government. And then finally, to create and maintain a feeling of security in the community. Those 8 things were identified more than 50 years ago by Professor Herman Goldstein and the Bar Association. They were true then, and they are still true now. We've got a new wrinkle tonight. In fact, we've got 2 different wrinkles that we're going to do. For those police officers of the Madison Police Department who were promoted in 2012, could you come forward and stand in front of the podium here? These are all the police, they're not all of the police officers, but the ones that are in attendance that were promoted in 2012. Could you please stand in front of the podium? Every year we promote somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 to 15 police officers in various ranks. And we thought it would be important that we present them not only to our other officers, but also present them to the community. There are key milestones in a police officer's career: the swearing-in ceremony, graduation from the police academy, and retirement. But in between that time, officers may seek promotion, which is also a very important achievement in an officer's career. The promotion is a time of pride, accomplishment, and validation by your peers, supervisors, and commanders that your full body of work is being recognized officially by the organization and the community in a formal way. that you have performed so well your current position that the organization is asking you to take on different, sometimes additional duties, responsibilities, and challenges for the good of service. Today, we are going to recognize, and I'm going to read the names for those who were promoted, but they may not be in attendance, but we're going to recognize Lieutenant June Grayler, Sergeant Alexander Berkovitz, Detective Angie Dyer, Detective Mark Hall, Detective Angela Komowski, Detective Lindsay Lutton, Detective Shannon Zorilla, Detective Bradley Ware, Detective Mindy Winter, and Investigator Colleen Mickelson. Could you all please join me in recognizing our 2012 promotees? Thank you. Thank you all. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And next, I'd like to call up Assistant Chief John Davenport, and someone who I enjoyed seeing just for a moment when he walked in, Lieutenant Wayne Strong. Could you please come forward? I still call him Lieutenant, although he is now retired. And if you were watching the school board race, you would have seen that Wayne was also running for school board. He would have made a great school board member, and maybe that time will come. But for tonight, we're honoring him for something else. Chief?
Good evening. Let me just talk to you a little bit about what at that time, Lieutenant Wayne Strong did to receive this life-saving award. On Monday, April 14, 2012, at approximately 8 p.m., Lieutenant Wayne Strong, while off-duty, driving in his personal vehicle in the 4300 block of Nakusa Trail, observed an hysterical female waving her arms in the middle of the road. Lieutenant Strong stopped his vehicle to render assistance and was informed that the woman's father was in a nearby apartment in distress and possibly experiencing a heart attack. Lieutenant Strong entered the second-floor apartment, found the victim with vaginal, I believe it is pronounced, vaginal labored breathing, and immediately began CCR. He continued CCR until Madison Fire Department Fire Rescue arrived and relieved him. The victim, Mr. George Jones, was transported to a local hospital where he began breathing on his own. An investigation revealed that Mr. Jones had been released previously that day from the hospital where he was recovering from a previous heart attack. Apparently, 2 stents had been inserted at that time, and Mr. Jones was allowed to go home. This is not the first time that Lieutenant Strong had received awards from the Madison Police Department for his service. And in checking back in his record, I will highlight a couple of those other times. In 2003, Lieutenant Wayne Strong was awarded the Medal of Valor. In 2010, he was also awarded the Outstanding Service Award. And as Joel said, he passed another milestone. In January of this year, he retired from the Madison Police Department after serving for 24 years. Lieutenant Strong's quick actions not only saved the life of Mr. Jones, but demonstrated his commitment to the safety and welfare of the citizens of this great city. Whether on or off duty, it is my honor to be able to present to Wayne the Department's Life Saving Award. Congratulations.
Next, I'd like to call up our records manager, Sue Fichtel, and she is going to present one of our civilian awards. Sue is our records manager and will also be receiving an award, so she can stay up here after she makes a presentation.
Thank you, Joel. My name is Sue Fichtel, and I am the records manager for the Madison Police Department. One of the units within my records section is the Court Services Unit. I'm here tonight to present the Problem-Solving Award to Ellie Babel, Administrative Clerk with the Court Services Unit of the Madison Police Department. In this position, Ellie is the department's municipal court liaison. The Court Services Unit is responsible for many things, one of which is the citation processing for the municipal court initial appearances. Prior to 2012, all municipal court cases which averages 700 to 800 per week, were prepared 1 to 2 weeks before any scheduled court date. A review of court appearances showed that approximately 25%, or 175 defendants, actually appeared on the day of court. Therefore, 75% of the court preparation involving staff time and materials were never utilized. Ellie worked with her unit supervisor in reviewing the municipal court process. In this review, the question came up: what if staff prepared only those cases where a defendant actually appeared? In other words, prepare the cases real-time. Ellie took the initiative and began discussions with the City of Madison IS department regarding availability of a second laptop computer for staff to use on the day of municipal court, and also options for printing necessary documents. Ellie presented a compelling case outlining the efficiencies of the process improvement that City IS wholeheartedly endorsed. That support was critical in the acquisition of a laptop computer to be used on those court dates, and the use of a printer in the municipal courtroom that would be dedicated to printing out those reports for which a defendant appeared in court. Finally, Ellie had discussions with the municipal court judge and court staff describing this improved process and the potential efficiencies. These discussions paved the way for approval of a testing period and ultimately final implementation. Ellie's initiative and contribution with this process improvement clearly demonstrates the understanding of problem solving with internal systems and the creation of efficiencies that effectively help our department's personnel increase their quality of service to our community. It is with great pleasure that I present the Problem Solving Award to Ellie Babel.
And Sue, if you can stay here, and Assistant Chief Randy Gaber, if you could please come up, and Lieutenant Brian Redmond from McFarland Police Department, if you could come up, please, and Eric Olson from City of Madison IT, please come up.
Good evening. There are times within a law enforcement agency where major changes must occur to keep the agency moving forward. And while major changes can be rare in occurrence, they are even more rare and important when they affect every employee of the organization, as well as 13 other law enforcement agencies that partner with us in maintaining shared records. That was just the case in 2012 when our department replaced their entire records management system. Needless to say, this was a monumental task that required the involvement of countless people, both within MPD and outside of our organization. And while ideally we would recognize every individual that helped us through this transition, and there were many, tonight I would like to recognize the work of Sue Fichtel, who was the project manager of this event, as well as Eric Olson from the City of Madison Department of Information and Technology, and McFarland Police Lieutenant Brian Redmond, who's the chairman of the 13 agency consortium. Throughout this project, Sue, Eric, and Brian worked tirelessly to develop, tweak, problem solve, train, and implement all aspects of the $750,000 project. Their commitment, patience, and resolve ensured that this project would succeed regardless of all the challenges that were before it. And most importantly, their understanding that the impact that a project of this nature has on the organizations and their dedication to openly receiving feedback and continuously communicating updates is deserving of this recognition. It is with great pride that I present the Outstanding Service and the Outstanding Support Awards to Sue Fichtel, Eric Olson, and Lieutenant Brian Redmond.
The next award will go to Val. How do we pronounce your last name? I never know. I see Val all the time. Is it Riedel? Riedel. Parking Enforcement Officer Valerie Riedel has been with the Madison Police Department since 2009. During that time, she's not only displayed a strong work ethic, but has conducted herself in a professional and caring manner consistent with the core values of the department. She believes in teamwork and never hesitates to help out her peers with the day-to-day tasks without being asked. Val always maintains a positive attitude and regularly volunteers to take on tasks above and beyond her assigned duties. Parking Enforcement Officer Riedel is a member of the Madison Police Department, Amigos in Azul, and I see other members of that group also here today, and has used that and other opportunities to get to know and strengthen relationships with officers. This is consistent with our efforts over the past several years to blur the lines between civilian and commissioned staff within the MPD. While assigned to the South District during 2012, Val, related to her primary duties as a parking enforcement officer, took it upon herself to examine a document related to our OWI investigative process, operating while under the influence. As she is bilingual, Val's original intent was to try to help officers with simple commands in Spanish, as well as improve her understanding of the Spanish language. This resulted in Val realizing that critical language in the Spanish version of our informing the accused form was missing. Val led up and brought this to the attention of South Command staff, and appropriate action was taken to correct the omission. This is just one illustration of her dedication to service to the community, and it is with pleasure that we provide her this Outstanding Service Award, which I'm going to have to run and get. Hang on. Next, I'd like to call to the forefront the leader of our drug task force, Lieutenant Brian Ackred, and he will bring with him several others, as we have several from our task force who are being honored tonight. Brian?
Thank you. On behalf of the Narcotics Unit, I'd first like to introduce Sergeant Jason Friedman, who will be presenting the first award.
Thank you and good evening. As Lieutenant Ackred said, my name is Jason Friedman, and I've been the sergeant in the Narcotics Unit for about 2.5 years. During that time, it's been my privilege to work with with all the 4 people that are about to receive the awards, but I'm going to talk about Detective Brian Austin first. Detective Austin and I started with the Madison Police Department together way back in 1997, and immediately developed a close friendship which has remained over the years. Despite our closeness inside and outside of the department, it wasn't until I had the opportunity to join the task force 3.5 years ago now that I got to start working with Brian Austin. One of the things that I noted right away was that in addition to being a first-rate detective, Brian has a law degree and was a prosecutor before coming to Madison. And in that role as a detective, he's been the lead in a number of cases, including several substantial federal cases, one of which recently concluded involving Damian Smith, who was one of the first individuals selected for our SIU unit. And Lieutenant Ackert will talk a little bit more about that. But the Outstanding Service Award, as the Chief mentioned, is more than just the normal day-to-day police work, which Brian does a great job at. And as I reflected on some of the other things that Brian does for the organization and for the community, I realized that here was somebody who was really providing outstanding service. Some of the examples of that are, in addition to his role as a detective in the task force, Brian has been a member of the MPD SWAT team for 13 years now. He's also a member of the Honor Guard, and both of those duties keep him quite busy in addition to his normal assignments. But beyond that, Brian is also routinely committed to training officers both within and outside of this department. Brian routinely assists with recruit training, officer-involved shooting training, recruit tactics. He has developed and delivered entire new courses for the MPD Training Center. And he has done all of these things while maintaining his caseload and while being the father of 3, one of whom, Jack, is in the audience tonight, and the husband of Melissa, who is in the audience tonight, and balancing those work-life demands. I believe all of those things have contributed to his outstanding service, and I'm proud to recognize all that he has done for MPD and the community throughout the course of his career.
I'd now ask Officers Caleb Johnson and Scott Reitmeyer to join me on the stage. Officers Johnson and Reitmeyer were members of the Dane County Narcotics and Gang Task Force with the assignment of undercover officer. And in the drug world, that's probably one of the most thankless jobs there are, the most thankless assignment. It's an extremely dangerous work. They are asked to work with some of the most dangerous repeat offender, violent offenders. That's how we select the persons we target for drug investigations. Oftentimes they're involved in other criminal activity, shootings, things that they just cannot be brought to justice for. And they are targeted for drug investigations because they happen to do that crime as well. Between the two of them, each of these gentlemen have been involved in over 100 drug purchases, each one of them on several significant violent offenders. Like I said, it's a thankless job. We rarely get publicity in the drug unit, and that is by choice. We tend to obviously not want to draw attention to ourselves as to how we are able to catch the people who are doing drug crimes. But there were two recent high publicity cases here in Madison in the last few weeks. One of those was the arrest of Paris Poe, an FBI fugitive from Chicago, wanted for homicide and other violent crimes. These gentlemen weren't involved in that case, but the drug unit undercover position was involved. It was an FBI case with great partnerships between the Madison Police Department, the Fitchburg Police Department, law enforcement throughout Dane County. What doesn't get publicized, though, is the work of an undercover officer sitting in a surveillance position for over 4 hours, watching an address where the suspect may be coming out of. And one of our undercover officers, sitting for 4 hours, spotted this violent felon who had shaved his head coming out of the residence, radios it to other surveillance people that are part of our drug unit team, follow this suspect where members of the Madison Police Department SWAT team, who also happen to be part of our drug unit, are able to take this suspect into custody without anyone being injured. And that's recognition that we rarely get to see with the drug unit. We don't publicize that, but I have to take this opportunity tonight to toot our own horn because we rarely get to do so. The other gentleman, high-profile sentencing this past week of Damian Smith, a violent repeat offender targeted by our Special Investigations Unit who was notified of his violent behavior that it would no longer be tolerated. He came on our radar screen by the SIU unit as we had information that he was continuing to sell drugs in the Dane County area. Officer Scott Reitmeyer made over 6 drug purchases of both heroin and crack cocaine from this violent, dangerous offender who this past week was sentenced to 13 years in federal prison in addition to the 12 years he was sentenced in state prison. So I just take this opportunity to recognize these gentlemen for the hard work they do. They're being recognized tonight for a problem-solving award. Undercover officers come into the drug unit assigned as a completely new assignment with zero training as to how to operate as an undercover officer. We typically have sent both of these gentlemen to a 40-hour, 1-week undercover school provided usually by independent police organizations. They're out of state. They get a week-long training on surveillance and other undercover techniques, defense and arrest tactics. As these guys are cycling out of the drug unit, we select new undercover officers. It's a 2 or 3 year assignment. They recognized the value of the training and came to me and said they think they could put on better training themselves than sending our new officers out of state to receive the training. They asked permission to try to put together a curriculum of 40 hours. I gave them the blessing. They took it and ran. It was countless hours of preparation. They pooled probably a dozen previous Madison Police Department undercover officers for their input into the training. They had a panel discussion as part of the training where each of these previous undercover officers were able to teach the new ones on the mistakes they made and lessons learned. They did defense arrest tactics. They did scenarios of undercover buys with video so they could critique the officers in their position. And they leave a legacy of outstanding undercover drug work, not only when they were performing the undercover work, but have been vital in training the new fellow undercover officers. And is it with my pleasure to provide the problem-solving award to officers Caleb Johnson and Scott Reitmeyer.
right, it's me again. I won't introduce myself, but I'm here tonight to present an award to Police Officer Matt Nordquist. Matt and I have worked together in the narcotics unit for the last 2.5 years, and prior to that, I've been privileged to work with him in the community policing teams, on patrol, and on SWAT as well. And over the course of those years and those assignments, I've come to rely on Matt's judgment, his abilities, and his decision-making under stress. It is because of my esteem that I have for his abilities that I routinely assign Matt number 1 in the search warrant stack. What that basically means is he's first through the door when we execute search warrants, a position of great responsibility and great risk. Matt was number 1 back in February of 2012 when the task force and federal agents executed a federal search warrant in the village of McFarland. As we always do, we did a comprehensive background check on our suspect and on our location. And our suspect had no violent history. There were no indications of weapons. We believed he lived alone in a small, single-family, one-story dwelling. And we had no other red flags, anything beyond the normal risks that are inherent in executing search warrants. On that day, approximately 25 agents from the task force and the federal government executed the search warrant. And per our protocol, per our plan, Matt was first at the door, and when the door was breached, Matt entered. As expected, the suspect was home. Happened to be about 5 feet away on Matt's right, seated in a chair. But, as often happens in policing, the unexpected occurred. And unexpected things started to occur right away because as that door opened and Matt stepped in, 2 additional subjects we had no idea were there were seated on a couch about 10 or 12 feet in front of him. Now, in the world of policing, 5 feet, 10 feet is really close, and close means things can happen very quickly. And something happened very quickly, and that is one of those suspects, who we later found out was a convicted felon, fled to the rear of the residence and disappeared around a corner. Now, this suspect did 2 things. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the second thing first. The second thing he did was he went into the basement of the house and he picked up an AK-47 assault rifle. I'm going to pause that storyline there. I'm going to go back to the first thing he did. First thing he did is, after we lost sight of him, he opened up a door and he let out a dog. And this dog happened to be a pit bull. And the pit bull responded to the shouts of, we were saying, police, get on the ground, police search warrant, the yelling, the cacophony that was going on. And the dog came back in the direction the suspect had fled, and the dog saw us, and Matt saw the dog. Distance between Matt and the dog was about 20 or 25 feet. A motivated human being can cover that ground in about 1.5 seconds. A pit bull can cover that ground much more quickly. I'm going to pause a little bit here, too. I've told you a very small amount, not giving it justice, about Matt the officer, but I want to tell you a little bit about Matt the man. Over the last 10 years or so, I've gotten to know Matt, and I consider Matt a friend of mine. And I know Matt to be a very generous person, generous with his time, generous to his friends. I've gotten to know some of Matt's passions. I think it'd be safe to say that he is a savant when it comes to football. He loves going to the gym. He loves his family. His wife, Justine, is in the audience tonight. She's a detective with the Madison Police Department. Matt also loves dogs. And nowhere did his generosity and his love of animals better combine than when Matt was the Allied Drive neighborhood officer. See, while Matt was working his assignment, he came across an animal that was mistreated. Most officers, seeing that, would have contacted Humane Society or Animal Control, but not Matt. Matt adopted that animal, and that animal happened to be a pit bull, and I'm glad to say that Seda is still a thriving member of their family, minus some recent veterinary bills that I've been made aware of. So Matt knows pit bulls. He loves pit bulls, and on more than one occasion, I've relied on his judgment and his assessment of animals, dogs we've encountered doing now probably over 100 search warrants together. And Matt can read their body language, and he's never been wrong. And typically, I'll find Matt playing with the dog or making sure the dog is safe, watered, fed, in good condition once the dust has settled. But the dog that was released by our suspect was not a friendly dog, and Matt immediately recognized in its posture, its behavior, that it was a threat to our team. When the dog charged, Matt knew he had to act in order to prevent great bodily harm to himself and his teammates. Matt could have acted right away with more distance, but he didn't. And he didn't for two reasons. The first reason was, if we remember, there was a suspect off to his right that was still unsecured, and there was another suspect roughly off, slightly to his left in front of him that was unsecured. And Matt didn't want to put either one of those people in jeopardy, because even though they were suspects and we did end up arresting them, they were being compliant and they were not a direct threat to Matt or the team. The other reason Matt paused was because he was hoping that the dog would turn around or stop, but it didn't. And when the dog was about 5 or 6 feet away from the team, Matt utilized deadly force and stopped the threat. Sergeant Tony Flares, a Dane County supervisor who was assigned to the task force at the time, told me afterwards, he was on Matt's left. He said he caught a blur of movement out of his eye. And as he turned, all he saw was a wide open mouth and fangs. And Tony told me, he said, I was sure I was going to get bit. And then Matt acted decisively, and Tony wasn't injured. And so Matt's quick, effective actions prevented serious injury to Sergeant Flares and potentially other people in the entry team. But it is not for that reason alone that I stand in front of you tonight. You see, if we go back to that suspect who had gone into the basement and picked up an AK-47, we return to his storyline now. After the threat of the pit bull was stopped, there was a period of time where negotiations eventually convinced the suspect to come upstairs, and he had stashed his AK-47 up in the rafters in an attempt to hide it. I believe that Matt's decisive actions allowed our team to stay in control, to safely take the two subjects that were upstairs into custody, and to demonstrate to the suspect in the basement that they were not going to win that fight, that there was no option for them other than to surrender. And had that animal injured Sergeant Flares or gotten into the entry team, our ability to control that situation would have been gravely jeopardized. And so it is for those reasons, the fact that we were able to finish this search warrant, take 3 people into custody, recover a very dangerous weapon, as well as some dangerous drugs, no one was injured, that I am proud to present to Matt tonight the Meritorious Conduct Medal for his actions that day in McFarland.
All right, thank you very much. And next, I'd like to call Sergeant Mike Hansen forward. Mike's in the back. Some may remember that prior to taking the Public Information Officer job, Mike Hansen was at that desk, and he taught me a lot, and I consider him a good friend. It's good to have him here tonight. He is now working in our training center. So, Sergeant Mike Hansen.
Good evening. Thank you, Joel. In 2012, a huge accomplishment came across the Madison Police Department, and that was opening our brand new regional police training center. This training center incorporates a 150-person auditorium, 12-person indoor range, classrooms, break room, defense and arrest tactics room, a driving simulator, and other features. This training center will be around for decades, and every employee of the Madison Police Department will use it at some point and should be extremely proud of this building. And part of the task in my assignment was to market and have other agencies utilize this training center. With some background in business, it became a natural fit at some point during my tenure there. But I was put on steroids when I met Paul Thompson. Paul Thompson is a marketing vice president for Hebing, which is here in Madison. And they do such work for Kimberly-Clark, Coca-Cola, and other large organizations in doing their marketing. And through some contacts, I came across Paul, who, when I met him, I knew immediately he would be a friend of law enforcement when I found out his son's name was Gunner. Paul immediately, without question, came and helped the Madison Police Department through his marketing expertise. Paul offered such great ideas as putting us on Facebook, email blasters, a newsletter, and even, most importantly, a professional brochure for us to market our courses. We had revenue goals that we had to meet, and with Paul's assistance in 2012 and on our way in 2013, we are far exceeding those goals. Paul has not asked for a dime. He simply wants to clean his guns every once in a while at the training center. Paul has generously, without any hesitancy, come to help in any marketing situation, with any promotion, any choreographing that needs to be done. Paul Thompson has been a friend of the Madison Police Department, and for years to come, we will rely on his expertise. I'm very honored to present Paul with the Outstanding Service Award.
And East District Captain Mary Schaaf is going to join us next, and we're going to recognize some people who did some very good work in our East District this year. Mary Schaaf.
Thank you, Joel. Thank you and good evening. Megan, why don't you come on up and join me, please? As Joel mentioned, my name is Mary Schaaf, and I'm the captain for the East District. And our first honoree tonight from the East District is Officer Megan Rogers for the Life Saving Award. On April 25th of 2012, the 911 Center advised that they had a 911 disconnect from a Cottage Grove Road address. The staff at the dispatch center was able to call back and make contact with a female who verified all of the information related to the address, said there was no need for police or for fire. The dispatcher then shared this information with Officer Rogers. This is where we come to the crucial point in the story. Many officers would have allowed this verbal contact by a communicator to be enough. The officer wouldn't have taken any further action. Megan, relying on her knowledge of the area, her expertise, and her overall dedicated approach to her work, opted to stop by and check. When she arrived, the male victim of an overdose was already turning blue and had very limited breathing. He was unresponsive. Megan immediately summoned fire rescue personnel and enlisted the female to help her lower the victim to the floor. She then opened the airway and began life-saving compressions for this individual. Once fire rescue arrived, they administered appropriate drugs, reversed the overdose, and the individual was later conveyed to a hospital for further treatment. Sergeant Lehner wrote of this incident stating, "If it had not been for the initiative of P.O. Rogers to follow up on the original call, police would have been responding to a death investigation as a result of an overdose." Ladies and gentlemen, the Life Saving Award, Officer Megan Rogers. Emily's not here tonight. Officer Allison Radzicki, step up, please. And I know Officer Emily Sampson is not able to join us tonight. Come on, you can come a little closer. There you go. This is Officer Allison Radzicki. We are also honoring Officer Emily Sampson, who's unable to be here, and this is the Life Saving Award. Officers Sampson and Radzicki were on duty when a call came in for a man that they knew who was essentially choking on his lunch. Emily had arrived first, and she began the life-saving efforts for the victim. She made various attempts to clear the airway and continued providing life-saving compressions for this individual. As the rescue efforts continued, Allison arrived on scene and took over the compressions for the victim. For any of you that have ever participated in these kinds of life-saving efforts, they do take a lot of effort from the individual involved. These officers performed these life-saving efforts for an extended time waiting for fire rescue to arrive. When fire rescue did arrive, their care was turned over and the man was transported to a medical facility in critical condition. The efforts of Officer Sampson and Radzicki prolonged the life of this individual and precious time for his family. Ladies and gentlemen, Officer Allison Radzicki. Come on up, Chris. Officer Chris Frank and Kyle Lees, I believe you're here. And yep, and I believe your dad's here, and if Dad wants to join us, he's welcome. But it's not required. Okay. Come on over, guys. Come to the middle of the podium. There we go. This is also a life-saving award, and this is Officer Chris Frank in the green here, and Kyle Lees for the Citizen Recognition Award. On an afternoon in October of 2012, then 16-year-old Kyle Lees was at home with his 45-year-old father. Kyle heard a loud bang in the house and went to explore what had happened. He found his father unresponsive on the kitchen floor. Kyle called a family member and then 911. The Dane County communicator told Kyle how to begin chest compressions. Kyle took this direction and stayed on the line with the communicator while he rendered aid to his father. As I mentioned in the earlier reading, it's hard enough to provide these life-saving measures to anyone, but when it's your own father, it's just that much closer and that much dearer to your heart. Officer Frank then arrived on scene and was told of the situation by Kyle. Officer Frank then resumed the resuscitation and life-saving efforts. Madison Fire Rescue arrived and used an AED to further stabilize Kyle's father prior to transport to a hospital. The hospital staff later stated that those immediate resuscitation efforts resulted in prevention of long-term damage to other critical body functions for Kyle's father. Enough so that Kyle's father is here with us tonight. According to the family, the father does not remember this life-threatening ordeal. Today, we take time to remember the actions that saved a father's life. Amber? Yes, sir?
It was kind of a neat moment prior to the ceremony, too, because Kyle's dad had not met Officer Frank yet, and so they got to meet for the first time today. They were in the same room together, but it wasn't a situation where he knew he was there. So that was a really nice moment, and it was nice to see these three get to see each other for the first time, really. Well, Kyle, I guess you saw the Officer Frank, but anyway, it was a nice moment.
Thank you, Joel. Amber, come on up. Amber Taylor for the Citizen Recognition Award. Sounds like Amber had a ride along on the night this happened, and we'll share with you what happened on that night. On a 45-degree October evening, Amber Taylor was driving on Cottage Grove Road. Now, for those of you that commute or drive on Cottage Grove Road, you know that the speed limit is not always adhered to. Amber saw the vehicles ahead of her stop and saw what she thought was children just getting out of some cars that were stopping ahead of her. 3 children stepped out into the road, away from the roadway, and traffic resumed again. At about the time that Amber's car came up, the 2-year-old quickly darted back into the roadway. Amber braked hard to avoid hitting the child. Concerned about the welfare of the children, she stopped to speak with them. The 3 young children, aged 2, 5, and 6, were unattended and improperly dressed for the weather. Amber allowed the 6-year-old to wear her coat and shoes since the child was only dressed in shorts and a long-sleeved t-shirt on this chilly evening. The children did not have any adult with them and did not know the location of their mother. Amber waited with the children for about 10 minutes. When no one came, she called for police assistance. It took the police 45 more minutes to locate the mother of the children, who had been drinking with a friend and lost track of time, and her kids. The children were placed ultimately with a trusted relative. Amber, as a mother and a new grandmother, took the time to protect these children. We recognize her tonight for her kindness and compassion toward these children and taking time to ensure their continued safety. Ladies and gentlemen, Amber Taylor.
And next, if North District Lieutenant John Radovan could come up. He will be our next presenter. Thank you very much, Amber. I told Amber those kids had a guardian angel that night. She's a nurse, and she was in the right spot at the right time.
Good evening. Before I begin, North District Captain Cam McClay couldn't make it this evening and asked that I convey his regrets at not being able to be here. So, could Officer Jacob Conrad come forward? Also receiving this award tonight, is Officer Justin Bailey, but he won't be able to be here tonight. On July 15th, 2012, Officers Jacob Conrad and Justin Bailey responded to a residence on the north side regarding a 74-year-old female who was pulseless and not breathing. Upon arriving, they located her in a back bedroom lying on a bed. They quickly did an assessment and realized she was in cardiac arrest. They placed her on the floor and initiated CCR, taking turns performing compressions until Madison Fire Department personnel could arrive. Shortly after that, the patient regained her pulse and began breathing on her own, and she was conveyed to a local hospital for further medical treatment. Officers Bailey and Conrad also provided comfort to several very distraught family members who were at the residence. For their efforts on this evening, Officers Conrad and Bailey are receiving a life-saving award for their quick and effective efforts on this call. Could Officer Katie Adler come forward? Being a neighborhood officer for the Madison Police Department has wide-ranging requirements. These include responding to calls for service, developing and maintaining relationships with neighborhood associations, landlords, and the individuals living in the neighborhood, and also forming and executing proactive approaches to crime trends. Officer Katie Adler started as the Northport Drive, Packers Avenue neighborhood officer in 2008 and continued in that role until February of this year. During that time, she exceeded all expectations of the position to the point, of course, that she was given additional responsibilities whenever her skills were needed in other parts of the North District. Two areas that stand out when I think about Katie are her dedication to children and her effectiveness in developing relationships with the citizens she serves. It's impossible in a few paragraphs to describe the dedication and quality of work that Katie brought to her position as neighborhood officer. Pat Steele, the program coordinator for the Northport Department Community Learning Center Neighborhood Networks, wrote a letter to the Madison Police Department that I think puts it best, and I'm going to read it to you. And this was sent late last year. To whom it may concern, it is an honor having Katie Adler as our neighborhood police officer. She is someone who truly cares about her work and the people she serves and protects. What I appreciate about Katie is that she has integrity for our residents. She is patient, fair, and honest. As many times as I have witnessed her in action, I can say that we can always count on her to take care of business. Katie reaches out to our residents. She spends time to get to know our children and their parents. She does not mind reading to a child or assisting him or her with homework when her day is not too hectic. Katie would also stop by and talk to the residents at their request and listens to their concerns, then helps them to resolve their issues and provides them with resources. She also knows how to have fun and would join us in our community functions whenever she could. Children love her at Northport and residents welcome her. She is definitely not a stranger here. I believe it is important to have a good working relationship with our neighborhood police officer. Katie and I have been working together for 5 years, sharing information and resources and keeping one another informed of happenings in the community, as well as supporting one another. It makes a world of difference. I certainly have enjoyed many heart-to-heart conversations with her. It really shows how much she cares and loves her job and how good of a person she is. And over the years of knowing her, I am honored to call her a good friend. We are so lucky to have her in our community. All of us at Northport Apartments deeply appreciate Katie for her hard work and efforts in keeping our neighborhood safe, strong, and healthy. Sincerely, Pat Steele. Even though Katie is no longer a neighborhood officer in this position, she is still working in the North District as a community, in our community policing team. And without going into details, I'll say she's just an invaluable resource to our district and also truly the epitome of a team player. We recently, due to an injury, had to fill the role of our East High School resource officer for the rest of the school year, and Katie willingly stood up and took on that role. For her work as a neighborhood officer and all the other things she does, Katie Adler is being presented with the Outstanding Service Award. This is a Citizen Recognition Award that's being presented to Jim Crombie. On April 6, 2012, Jim Crombie was walking his U.S. Postal Mail route when he observed a rooftop balcony fire at 9 Ridgeview Court. He immediately yelled at a nearby resident to contact 911 and then ran into the complex. He knocked on the apartment door, and after not hearing any answer, he made forced entry into the apartment to check for occupants. Upon not locating any, he used a fire extinguisher and buckets of water with another resident of the apartment complex to extinguish the fire. His act of bravery subjected him to a high risk of injury and prevented the fire from spreading throughout the complex, potentially preventing injuries or death to others, and definitely preventing further property damage. For this act of bravery, Mr. Crombie is receiving the Citizen Recognition Award. And this is Jeffrey Sandstrom, who is a Madison Metro bus driver. On October 23, 2012, Mr. Sandstrom was driving his Madison Metro bus route on the 2300 block of North Sherman Avenue. He heard what sounded like a fight in the back of the bus, and when he looked to see what was going on, he saw a group of male teenagers clustered together in the aisle. He immediately pulled over and ordered them off the bus. He didn't realize it at that moment, but the teenagers were punching a middle-aged man who was trying to get off the bus. One of the teenagers had tried to take the man's wallet as he walked down the aisle past them. When this victim pushed the young man's hand away, the rest of these individuals started punching him. After Mr. Sandstrom stopped the bus, the victim quickly exited the front of the bus. Mr. Sandstrom then saw the teenagers exit out the back of the bus and went outside to watch what they were doing. The victim ran down the sidewalk with the suspects chasing them. They then tripped the suspect, then tripped the victim, and then started punching and kicking him. The suspects then stopped, and after walking past Mr. Sandstrom, started running away. Mr. Sandstrom quickly checked on the victim and called the incident into his dispatcher. Mr. Sandstrom's willingness to step away from the safety of his bus and see what was going on undoubtedly caused the suspects to stop their assault before the victim was seriously injured, and thankfully the victim only suffered minor injuries. His quick action of notifying his dispatcher also enabled MPD officers to catch 2 of the suspects right away and another 2 later that evening, and all 4 were convicted of charges, 3 of them being felony charges. For his actions, Jeffrey Sandstrom is awarded the Citizen Recognition Award.
I knew Jeff looked familiar when he walked in. It turns out he's somebody in the winter. I try to ride my bike when I can to work, but he's my bus driver too. So I was like, wow. And that's the thing I love about this ceremony. I know the great work that the men and women of the police department do every day, but it's the citizens who step into these roles sometimes and do just great things that are really heartwarming, and that's why it's fun to come to this ceremony and see everybody together. Next, I'd like to call up South District Captain Joe Ballas, and he'll present our next awards.
Is Officer Trent Scanlon here? Okay. All right. Can I invite our community partners from Loma Vida? Come up. In 2004, the Madison Police Department launched our Amigos en Azul program. Amigos en Azul is Spanish for Friends in Blue. The MPD Amigos program is comprised of MPD personnel from all ranks who are dedicated to dissolving cultural barriers, building partnerships, and opening lines of communication between the Latino community and MPD. What started back then as a grassroots initiative out of the South District quickly expanded and today helps maintain our relationship with the Latino community and neighborhoods across the city of Madison. Our Amigos en Azul efforts would not have nearly been as successful without our longtime partnership and collaboration with Loma Vida Radio. Program directors Luis and Lupita Monota and their staff at Loma Vida have supported the MPD's Amigos initiatives from the beginning. Their support has helped us with our mission and overcome many barriers which often exist between Latinos and local law enforcement. For those of you who may not be aware, Loma Vida Radio, owned and operated locally by Midwest Family Broadcasting, is a Spanish-language radio station broadcasting locally on 1480 AM. Loma Vida has over 50,000 listeners throughout southern Wisconsin. Loma Vida Radio is very active both on the air and in the community, building trust and strengthening partnerships every day. Some of the past MPD Loma Vida collaborations have included our car safety clinics and traffic safety forums. Loma Vida understands the importance of educating the Latino community on traffic safety, and have even broadcasted live from our events, such as the great event we held down at Thorsted's last Saturday that several dozens of people attended. Our Spanish Crime Stoppers program, Loma Vida assists us in this effort by helping us produce and broadcast Crime Stoppers announcements in Spanish. El Debate, Loma Vida prevents an on-air forum where MPD officers are often invited to discuss with the listening audience various laws and current MPD policies regarding the enforcement of those laws and how they impact the Latino community. And more importantly, MPD gets a chance to learn directly from the Latino community how those laws impact them. Our annual Safe Harbor Radiothon for many years, Loma Vida has helped MPD raise several thousands of dollars for Safe Harbor. Thousands of those dollars help us ensure that child abuse victims can describe to detectives in English or Spanish the details of those crimes that have been perpetrated upon them. And lastly, just a lot of community events that Loma Vida does, and they routinely include MPD in those celebrations, such as Mexican Independence Day. Madison Police Detective and current Central Hispano Board President Gloria Reyes and myself submitted Loma Vida Radio to the MPD Awards Committee for consideration. On behalf of Chief Ray and the MPD Awards Committee, tonight we are honored to officially bestow the MPD Community Support Award to 1480 Donde Si La Movuavas. Congratulations, Loma Vida.
Just want to check quickly, is James Peterson here? I didn't see him. Okay. We're going to call someone out of order. So Detective Cindy Murphy, I heard you're here and that you just flew in. Something about a relative getting married, and she wasn't here at the beginning of the ceremony. So Assistant Chief John Davenport will present her award now.
Welcome back, Cindy.
Thank you.
On March 3rd of this year, the forensic service computer was turned off for what should have been a simple reconfiguration change of the system. When the server was powered back up, the RAID arrays, Cindy, you can tell us what that means, which contained digital evidence, showed errors in the system. At that time, it was unknown whether or not all of our digital evidence was lost. After Detective Murphy reconfigured the arrays with the assistance of Dane County Deputy Ron Dorn, we learned that our digital evidence was still there, but in a very precarious situation. In the fall of 2012, the Madison Police Department applied for and received a grant to purchase a new forensic services server to house digital evidence. Throughout the year, Detective Murphy has spent countless hours reconfiguring RAID arrays to save our forensic evidence, transfer evidence from our server to another, and then build a new network for the new server as the new server arrived. Detective Murphy also saved the department thousands of dollars because she was willing to problem solve and figure out how to safely transfer digital evidence off the failed RAID arrays and then build a current network. Detective Murphy showed great initiative and perseverance during a very trying time in our organization. It is my pleasure to present Detective Murphy with the Outstanding Service and Problem Solving Award.
And next, I'd like to call West District Captain Vic Wall to come forward, and we have several awards that he will present. On December 12th of last year, officers were dispatched to a West District address for a suicidal subject. Responding officers determined that the subject was in his garage with a vehicle running and was armed with a handgun. As a perimeter was being formed, the subject fired a shot in the garage and began revving the engine on his vehicle. Sergeant Eric Furman was the scene supervisor and managed this very challenging and complex incident. This required the coordination of perimeter officers, negotiators, canine units, paramedics, vehicle positioning, and the evacuation of neighbors, all on a bitterly cold night. After several hours of negotiations, the suspect was taken into custody safely. At that time, the investigation uncovered a long pattern of domestic abuse that had been previously unreported. Sergeant Furman calmly and skillfully managed the situation, and his leadership led to a safe resolution for all involved. For his actions during this incident, I'm pleased to present him with the MPD Outstanding Service Award. Corey Bell. On November 18th of last year, a 65-year-old disabled man was reported as missing from Madison's west side. Officers began searching for the subject and also broadcast a message to Madison Metro bus drivers, providing the individual's description. Mr. Bell was driving his bus downtown and quickly realized that the missing subject was on his bus. He notified MPD and officers responded to his location. The missing subject would not leave the bus, however, and officers spent some time trying to persuade him to exit with them. During this time, Mr. Bell remained engaged with officers, passengers, and the missing person's caretakers to provide assistance. Eventually, Mr. Bell drove the bus back to Madison Metro, where the individual exited without incident. Mr. Bell's patience and observation skills helped officers successfully resolve this incident, and I'm pleased to present him with the MPD Outstanding Support Award. Mark Moeller. On March 2nd of 2012, during the middle of a snowstorm, officers responded to a call of a woman who was being beaten inside of a vehicle in the Westtown Mall parking lot. A citizen in the parking lot saw the battery occurring and ran inside Sears to get help. Mr. Moeller was shopping in Sears at the time. He immediately ran out of the store and to the vehicle to intervene. Mr. Moeller physically stepped in between the suspect and victim and prevented any further assault. He also stayed with the victim until police arrived, preventing the suspects from having any further contact with her. The investigation subsequently showed that the victim had been strangled, bitten, and battered in the vehicle by her former boyfriend. Two other occupants in the vehicle also participated in the assault. All three suspects were arrested and have been convicted of multiple crimes for their roles in this incident. Mr. Moeller put aside his own safety and ran to the aid of the victim, intervening with three unknown suspects present. Without his intervention, the assault likely would have continued. I'm pleased to present Mark Moeller with the MPD Citizen Recognition Award. Okay. This is Marge Ward accepting on behalf of Daniel Ward. On August 5th of 2012, Daniel Ward was driving on the Beltline between Midvale Boulevard and Whitney Way when he observed a vehicle entering the Beltline from Midvale driving at an excessive rate of speed. The vehicle, traveling about 90 miles an hour, lost control and struck an SUV, causing the SUV to leave the roadway and roll over, ending up on the Odana Hills Golf Course. The suspect vehicle continued driving after the accident, accelerating away on the Beltline. Mr. Ward contacted police and followed the suspect vehicle. The suspect continued driving erratically and eventually pulled to a stop on a residential street. Mr. Ward pulled in front of the suspect vehicle and waited for officers to arrive. The SUV that had rolled over was occupied by a family, which included two small children. Fortunately, none were seriously injured. The driver of the suspect vehicle was arrested for drunk driving and hit and run. Mr. Ward's quick thinking and persistence prevented the suspect driver from getting away and allowed him to be quickly arrested.
For this assistance, I am pleased to present Daniel Ward with the MPD Citizen Recognition Award.
Daniel's mom told me that he is currently in Virginia training with reserves there, so we also salute his service to our country.
Eric Weinstein, Marco Moreno, and Jed Freimiller. Eric's here?
I'm Eric, and I'm stepping for Marco.
Okay. Okay. Jed, are you here? All right. While Jed works his way up here, on November 9th of 2012, Eric Weinstein and his brother-in-law, Marco Moreno, were in the pool area of the West Side Princeton Club. Weinstein noted what he thought were a person's fingers sticking out of the water in the whirlpool. As he approached, he saw an unconscious man submerged under the water. Mr. Weinstein and Mr. Moreno entered the whirlpool and pulled a man who was in his early 70s out of the water. Mr. Freimiller went to call 911, and other club members waited at the front door to direct in responding emergency personnel. Once outside the pool, the man began to regain consciousness. He was conveyed to a local hospital by paramedics and was alert and responsive when he arrived. Were it not for the alertness and quick reactions by Mr. Weinstein, Mr. Moreno, and Mr. Freimiller, it is likely that the male would have drowned in the whirlpool. For their actions, I am pleased to present the MPD Citizen Recognition Award.
Next, I'd like to call Central District Captain Carl Glady to the front, and we also are recognizing a Madison firefighter tonight, so if he would like to come up front too, that would be great. Captain.
Michael A. Howell, Citizen Recognition Award. On November 4th, 2012, at approximately 2:45 a.m., officers were dispatched to a battery involving a male beating a female. Michael, who was walking nearby, heard a female screaming and ran in that direction. He encountered a male repeatedly striking a female who was on the ground. Michael's intervention caused the male to run. Michael attempted to stop the male, but after a short, brief struggle, the suspect was able to flee. Michael returned to the scene and began assisting the female victim, who was bleeding from several lacerations to her head. Officers later learned from the victim that the male tackled her from behind, began punching her in an effort she described as, "He was trying to knock me out." She then described the suspect's attempt to drag her to a secluded area. Michael's off-duty actions interrupted what was likely to be more serious crime of sexual assault from taking place. It is my honor to present to Michael, a member of the City of Madison Fire Department, the Citizen Recognition Award for his actions on November 4th, 2012.
And I'm going to ask Captain Glady to stay up here, as he is also a recipient of award tonight, and that award will be presented by Chief Ray.
And moving right along. This award will be presented to Captain Carl Glady, and it is a problem-solving award. In October 2011, the City of Madison was met with a new challenge when a group known as Occupy Madison scheduled a protest camp in Reynolds Park on the Near East Side. The contingent also, although small, soon moved to State Street and then to the Monona Terrace, and then finally in the 800 block of East Washington. The city's goal was to assure a safe event for participants, neighbors, and the person selected to lead this effort was Central District Captain Carl Glady. Captain Glady remained on task for more than 6 months, overseeing negotiations, disturbance calls, protests, and many other issues and events that resulted from this group's presence. The group, which initially gathered as a protest, morphed into a homeless encampment when an increase in occupants bringing a variety of issues with it. Captain Glady continued to dialogue with all of the parties involved, as well as city staff. As the deadline for ending the encampment approached, Captain Glady met with campers, emphasizing the importance of cooperation. Around the country, several Occupy movements ended in violence. But here in Madison, we kept the peace, in large part because of Captain Glady's tireless involvement and never-ending patience. It should be noted that Mayor Soglin and his staff nominated Captain Glady for his honor, for his work. For his expertise, calm demeanor, and ability to work respectfully with all people involved, it is my deep honor to present Captain Glady with the Problem Solving Award. This next award is an award that is a new award this year. And this award is given to an employee, both in their private life and their work life, inspire us to do better in our work at home and connect in our work while we're at work. And so this award is going to be called the Courageous Service Award. The first recipient of this award is going to be Sergeant Karen Cron. For those of you that don't know Karen Cron, this will just jump right out at you if you met her. So, the Courageous Service Award. On April 24th, 1995, Sergeant Karen Cron of Cudahy, Wisconsin, joined the Madison Police Department after earning her bachelor's degree in biology at UW-Whitewater. Karen established herself as a competent, compassionate, and proactive police officer, and she quickly learned the respect and admiration of her coworkers. In 2002, Karen was promoted to the rank of sergeant, where she continued to lead her fellow officers, serving the people of Madison in a caring and professional manner. Karen was also a long-term member of the special events team, where she took on a leadership role during significant and pivotal events throughout Madison. Throughout her 18 years of service, Karen has received numerous commendations, both from officers and citizens of Madison, demonstrating the quality and the competence of an outstanding police officer and patrol sergeant. In December 2011, Karen was diagnosed with cancer. Doctors diagnosed Karen with sarcoma, a rare and aggressive cancer that attacked her lungs and bones. Karen went through several rounds of chemotherapy, radiation treatments, most of which often left her very fatigued, extremely fatigued. Despite her personal challenges, Karen continued to fight her cancer with all of her might and actually returned to full duty work as a patrol sergeant in July of 2012. Karen's strength and her determination was inspirational, and an inspiration for the entire Madison Police Department, and her Caring Bridge site has received more than 10,000 visits. Karen continued to perform her duties above and beyond the call and continued to excel as a supervisor. Karen's fight with cancer is a testament to her courageous attitude and her attitude about life towards the Madison Police Department and towards her family, including her domestic partner, Shelley Gilbertson. On May 9th, 2013, Karen notified the Madison Police Department that she could no longer perform her duties and needed to retire from the Madison Police Department due to her cancer. Karen's dedication to the department will be missed. Karen's career is more than deserving of this award, and it is my distinct pleasure and honor to present her with the first Courageous Service Award. Karen actually received her award yesterday, and I'm sure if she was here, she would give a heartfelt thank you for all of you for being here tonight. Would you join me in a round of applause? If you have not had an opportunity to see this picture that went viral of Karen with our mounted unit, one of our largest horses in the world, it's named Bubba, you may want to check that out. I mean, it's a touching picture. I'm just going to keep my closing comments very, very brief because, you know, we promised to keep things moving along. But I'm always touched by the citizens. I mean, our officers, our civilian, commission, do a wonderful and excellent job, professional, the best in the nation, in my view. Do an excellent job. But tonight, you can see that police officers, emergency personnel, respond to calls, but it takes a community to keep a community safe. Some of the things that our citizen members that received awards up here were just incredible. We have a wonderful city. And so with that, I hope that you enjoyed the ceremony, and please keep doing what you're doing, and thank you all very much.